Yes, that was a problem. Thank you, Stacking. So what I do is I click the microphone little button, and then I click the music thing stop, and then I transfer over, and I missed the microphone button. So I clicked something else instead. That was fun. So I should be back on. You should be able to hear me again. So good morning, Stacking. Hello. You didn't really miss very much. Just sort of talking about how cold it is here, and what we're working on today, which is middleware stuff. So continuing on with that. All right. So fun then. It finds the run function I've got. Okay. So what are we doing? It's all fine now. Oh, great. You're on mobile, so you have high latency. Oh, that's mobile with latency is always fun. I've always wondered, is it even readable, like the text, for what we do? So we're doing the from function, and then we use this as the example. Okay, and then we can get it. Okay, that's where we're going for. So I'm thinking we're going to inject. We're going to inject something into maybe something from the headers into an extension, pass that through, and then have that be just returned, like mirrored back. Okay. Okay, so that's you. We'll start here. I'll turn you off. And okay, I think we're good to go and get started with it. We're gonna see if it's gonna take more than one time. I'm still sort of like slightly brain foggy from waking up this morning. I think whenever I sleep overnight and the temperature drops so much and I didn't have like the heater on or anything to like, you know, I guess it dropped more than I was expecting it to, and so I woke up with like just I don't know, feeling weird. Okay, so let's do this. We'll start with ThunderClan and creating a new request. Okay, with a custom, so we'll mirror out maybe user agent or something. Okay, so here we go. We've created some. We've used some middleware like cores, but what if we want to create our own custom middleware? So basically, a function that runs in between routes, maybe before all of them, maybe before just some of them, and it can affect the request. So the use case that I usually have for this is maybe adding something in, maybe for authentication, maybe just for anything else. You just want a little bit of data available to every other route after the middleware, uh, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to create a custom middleware function. So to begin with, let's sort of plan out and sort of like create the test for how this is going to work. So in ThunderClan, I'm going to create a new request. I've already got the server up and running. So this is going to be a get to HTTP localhost port 3000. Let's go through like middleware, um, little middleware headers, like maybe like custom header. Of course, got a 404 not found, and let's also just send a custom header. Let's just call this message, and we'll just say hello from Thunder Client. Okay, so we get a 404 not found. Let's change that at least. So in our code, we're going to open up our routes, and we're going to add in middleware custom header. Now that might be a little bit. I'm going to put like a read middleware custom header on this one because this is going to be the handler part of it. Okay, head back to mod. Did I put a .rs on this one? I feel like I forgot that. I did. Kind of important to make it actually see it. So this is read middleware custom header. All right, back to here. Let's create our function. So pub async function read middleware custom header. And then back to you, and we'll create the route for this. Now we can have routes that get added on after the layers, but the key is that anything after the layer cannot read what's in the layer. So this route, for example, will not have the core's headers as part of it, which for us is fine, but it is something to be aware of. So this is read middleware custom header. Our service is a get. Okay. So you should be happy here now, which means that you should give us a, oh, you don't get a 200. This is a get to, oh, just middleware custom header. Let's actually change this to a read. There we go, 200 okay. So it found this route. Excellent. Now, what we want to be able to do is we want to have some middleware that sets that message into the request as an extension, and then we can read that out here. So instead of getting the headers here, we're just going to get the extension. It's going to wait for us to maybe like validate that the header is there. Maybe even like the header has certain types of content or is a string at the very least. So here at this point, we're just going to say, I want an extension. It's going to have some custom type here. And that's going to be an extension with some custom type. And we're going to return a string. Well, that's going to make it a little bit hard to write this part out now. So let's figure out like what this type is going to be. Let's actually create this. So do a pub struct. This would maybe be like a like header message. Header message. Because it's just a message, I can use this as a tuple struct. And you will hold a string inside. And that's it. That's all I really care about. So you are going to be the message, and your type is going to be this header message. All right, now it's just yelling at us that we're not returning a string. Well, I have this header message, so I'm just going to return message. Oh, right, message dot 0. Now, by doing this, we're going to run into a weird problem here, which is the trait bound function extension meta a message function output string. This is such a like a nasty error. And when I first got this, it was it was not helpful at all. So it's not satisfied by the trait handler rec body. So it's saying that something is missing or something is not there, not working. What it's missing is clone. So if we derive clone, that error goes away and everything works. That being said, if I go and try to run this now, it crashes the server because we're trying to read an extension and it's not going to work. So this is a good point to mention that the newer version of Axum is actually going to change middleware, and it's going to make it a little bit better for us, the user. And the middleware section is probably going to be the biggest change with the next major version of Axum. Possibly for like extensions and not getting a big giant crash like this whenever it doesn't exist, but also just how we're going to create the custom middleware itself might be fairly different. I'll create new videos for it, but it might take a little tiny bit of time before I do that after they release. All right, so let's actually create our middleware now. So I should probably restart my server too. Oh, it looks like it restarted automatically for us after it crashed. Excellent. Let's I'm going to create the middleware just here in routes. It kind of makes sense to me. So this is going to be the maybe set middleware custom header rs. We'll mod this. And okay, back to you. So creating the middleware itself is not quite like creating the handler, although it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. So this is not quite like Express with Node.js, if you're used to that, where to create the middleware, all you're really doing is adding like a next that you could then call at the end. Well, there is a next. It's Rust, which means that there's some type stuff that we have to be very careful about. So let's go to the documentation. I've already opened the local documentation here that we've compiled previously. And if we go to Axum, middleware, writing middleware, it gives us two choices how we want to write this middleware. What we're looking for is this from function style. The from extractor is actually going to be some kind of middleware that now works with any sort of like tower type middleware. That's not what we want to do. We want to write the simplest middleware. It will only work with Axum, but we're writing an Axum, and this middleware is going to be used inside of it. So this is what we're showing you in this course. Okay, so there's a series of steps that we need to do. So it needs to be an async function, okay, just like the handlers. It needs to take in a request with a generic type. It also needs to take in a next. Okay, well, that's similar to most other middleware systems with that exact same generic type. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? Because we're going to have the request is one type, and then we call to next and we pass it that same request. Okay, so there should be the same generic types. And then we should return something that implements into response. Okay, so let's take a look at an example of what this looks like. So we're going to have async function. We register the generic, take in the request and the next, and we're going to return a result with a response. This response is literally just Axum response. So we don't need to worry too much about that. It sort of knows what that means. And also a status code. Okay, so this is how we can control whether or not we're going to get a 404, a 500, a 200, whatnot. Now that's on the error side of things. So it allows, if we error out, we can say, oh, this is a 500 because you forgot to send the message, maybe. Then we can do whatever we want to do in the code, and we can do when we're done. We then return an OK, and we call run on next and pass it the request, and then await that because it is asynchronous. All right, let's oh, and then the final thing, down here we have this route layer, or it could just be layer itself, and we have this middleware from function auth. Okay, let's try this. We want a middleware that's going to extract the message in the header. All right, so here we are in the set middleware function. We're going to have a pub async function. Let's just call this set middleware custom header. Now, we know that this takes a generic type. If you haven't worked with generics before, the capital letter is pretty common for registering of the types. It can be any capital letter. It could even be multiple letters together. It doesn't have to be B. You might see a lot as T, but it could be anything that you want. We'll go with the same convention that they have, so anybody who's sort of looking at the documentation and then looking at this will be able to see it. So we have a request, and this is going to be a type request, which is actually under Axum HTTP request. So request, and it's that type B. And then we have next, which is type next, and it's that exact same generic type. So the way that generics work is when this gets compiled, it's going to compile multiple versions of this function based upon the types that it sort of knows we're going to have or need. And then they'll just sort of be ready in the binary for us. Because there's just one here, it doesn't need to set like, okay, one type of object goes in here and another type goes in here. And I think that's something important to sort of realize when working with generics. Okay, next, we're going to return a result. And this is just a Rust thing. This is not an Axum thing. A result always returns two types inside of it. So one is going to be whatever it is if it's okay. Okay, so it's I believe that's the response. And it doesn't take any kind of special type as part of that. And then we have the return code. Return code, it's something code. It was status code. Status code. Okay, now you're just going to yell at us because we're not done yet. Well, okay, let's we know to sort of like make this happy. We're going to return an okay, and then we're going to call next, run, pass in the request, and await that. Okay, so now this is happy. It's not doing anything for us, but the middleware technically exists. So we can head back to mod and now go use this. Okay, so let's actually pull this in. So we're gonna use this is the set middleware custom header. There we get that function. We need to make sure that this happens after our route, otherwise it's not going to work. So I'm going to do a route layer, and then we remember in here it's middleware from function auth. Okay, so middleware, which comes from Axum middleware, from function. Now they said auth because that was the name of their function. Our function is the set middleware custom header. So set middleware custom header. I do not call it. And that's it. This middleware should now run before actually everything else. Now, if we only wanted this middleware to run before this specific route, we're going to have to move these up to the top. So that way, this route layer runs before this route, but all of these other ones are not going to get that message in the extension added in. Okay. We're still going to be crashing though, because we still don't have that extension set for this this handler. Let's now do that inside of our custom middleware. So here we have a response, but we can't just sort of do the extractor sort of like as we were used to, where we can just put in like headers inside of here. We have to get things off of the request. So let's say we get our headers equals request dot, what do we have in here? Well, we can do headers itself, which actually get us a header map. Okay, sounds about right. So if we have a header map, I can, well, I mean, now it's just like we did the extractor already for that. So I want the message. I want headers. I want to get, and I believe this was just message. Now that gives us an option here. So I could unwrap this, and that will work, but this will crash the entire server. So what we can do? Well, what if we return a status code? So we can turn an error status code to say like, hey, you're missing something. I have this fails. It's probably because they're missing the header, so it's probably a 400 error. So let's do a map error. We can know, oh, this maps the success. Oh, this is going to be an okay or else, which will then turn it into an error. Okay, so we have a closure here. This gives us the error here. I don't necessarily really care about that error. So what are we getting here? We're getting an error because we failed to get the message. So I want to return a status code. So this is going to be an error. I want a status. I think I can actually don't have to return error. I think I just return the status code and probably a bad request. And I return that, and now I can question mark you. So the question mark is basically saying, okay, well, if there is an error, then I want you to return out to this side of the result. Okay. Okay, or else then we have our message. It's this header value, so we need to turn this into a string. It's going to be a very similar thing. So we're going to do let, we can actually shadow this. So let message equals, I'm going to convert this into a string here. So message dot to stir. That gives me a result, but unfortunately a to stir error. Now, instead of just okay or else, because it's already a result, we can map the error. We're going to get an error in here, but I'm not going to use it because once again, if they sent me something that I can't do anything with, I'm just going to turn it into a status code, which loses all the sort of information about this. So let's just return status code, bad request. And this returns a result with the status code now, so I can question mark that. Finally, I have a stir. So I can return, well, I need to set this as an extension on message, or sorry, on the request. So let's see what we can do here. So we want request dot extensions mute. If I have extensions mutable, I can now insert and a value. Well, we kind of have what the value is. We want this header message here. This is the reason why I made this public, so I can now pull the header message type out and use it in here. So I want header message, and we're going to pass in message, and we'll to owned it. So we have ownership of it, so we can give ownership to header message. And what are you upset about? Cannot initialize a tuple struct which contains private fields. Okay, let's head back into here, and we'll make you public. Cannot borrow request as mutable as it's not declared mutably. Okay, so this request, we need to say, hey, you're mutable. Cannot borrow, oh, because it's also borrowed as immutable. The immutable borrow occurs here. Oh, so I can't do this all in one line. All right, so let's now get the extensions equals here. We'll semicolon this. That gives us a mutable reference to extensions, and then we can do extensions dot insert here. Okay. Can I borrow request? Oh, our request is actually, so we have our headers map, we have our message. Where exactly is that? Because also borrowed, immutable borrow happens on line 13. Oh, here with the headers. Okay, so we get the headers. We get our message, so headers key, okay or else. Oh, so I can't do a the to owned for this message because it's this reference to a stir that's still from here. So let's just do a to owned here to turn that into a string. You'll become the message. And that makes that error go away. So if you see that quite often, it's basically just an order of operations problem. Usually it's Rust's compiler is saying, hey, there's a really good chance that you're going to run into problems if you do it in that order. Change it around, please. Okay, so we don't have any errors anymore. I am now getting the mutable extensions. I'm inserting the header message in here. Now notice that it takes a type that goes in here. So if I just put in a string, then it means that it can't have any other extension that has a string because it's just sort of getting this one. So creating a wrapper type similar to what we did here is very helpful because we can sort of we can always make sure that we're getting back exactly what we expect to get back. All right, so we insert that, and then we run next and run. All right, back to here. We're just getting this extension out, which has this header message, and then returning that. Let's see if this works. If I hit send again, hey, we now get our hello from ThunderClient. So we can change this message, and we get it back. So what did we do? We created a custom middleware function here. It takes in request and it takes in next. We can make this request mutable if we want to change it and add a little bit of data to it for our future route handlers. In this case, our bit of logic was to grab information from the headers and then put that as an extension into the request, and then we just move on to the next thing. We don't have to return anything. The only thing we're really returning here is essentially the error. The rest is just saying, okay, yeah, we're done. We're good to go. In our routes, we make sure that this happens where we expect them to, and set the route layer with the middleware from function. And that's it. Pretty much everything else follows the same rules that we've been sort of seeing so far. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you can now create your own custom middleware. thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Hello, Vinox. Hopefully it wasn't Flickr. So I took a look at my preview, and then I also took a look at my other preview. Because I have like the OBS preview and I have the preview that's actually playing from Twitch. And I couldn't see a flicker on that one. So I'm hoping that that's not the case for the recording. Let me look at that really quickly on the file here. Because you stated that pretty soon after I started recording. We've created some, we've used some middleware like cores. Able to hear that? What if we want to create our own custom middleware? So basically, yeah, you can hear that because of desktop audio. Wait, can I have you see that? Maybe before all of them, maybe before just some of them, and it can affect. You can see the sort of. The use case that I usually so I'm not seeing flickering here. Adding some local host port 3. Okay, head back to mod. Did I start this before 7? I don't think I did, right? Did I put a .rs on this one? I feel like I but everything looks sort of darker orange, which kind is of important to make it actually might be my read sort of visual setup. I keep on forgetting about that. All right, back to as an extension, and then. But I think this is good. All right. The maybe set. Yeah. So I wonder if that was on your side. Unfortunately. But okay. So let me put it back to Mac again. All right. What are we doing here for this one? This was custom middleware. All right, no warnings. That's good. That shouldn't cause any problems to anybody else running this because it's at the top of the list. Close you. And I got that derived clone. You can actually see that early when if you create the struct first, then you'll see that. Okay, so we'll have custom middleware. Return the appropriate status code and message when erroring. Okay, so we can have returning status codes and I think you can also return a result that has more than just status code. It has a message on it. We did that in the project solution a lot. So an app error that we set. Oh, right. We have to do an into response for app error. Self status code, JSON error response. Oh, it's a JSON. Well, that's mine. With just an error string. Okay. And that gives me a message. Well, I guess I was doing this for like to send like a custom message back. Okay, so that could be fine. What else do we have? Are we gonna do this like a custom error somewhere else? Yeah, okay. We're going to have like a custom error response here. So I guess like an actual we can do an actual lesson on just returning status codes. I kind of covered that a little tiny bit here, but having like a custom lesson for it, like, oh yeah, status codes with its own title, I think that'll be good. Maybe we'll do something that like always returns. Oh, we could do something that returns a 418. Um, does status code include I'm a teapot? Oh, it does return I'm a teapot. Okay, perfect. We'll do that. We'll create a route that returns a 418. Okay, so you're actually done. So next up, status codes. All right. Let's uh let's do this. In the last video, we created a custom middleware that returns an error status code if something fails, or maybe we just didn't pass in the right data into it. But I wanted to just cover custom status codes in route handlers in its own lesson here. So let's go ahead and create a let's create a route. So I'm going to create a new request. This is to HTTP localhost port 3000. Let's do uh maybe like always errors. So like always errors. We got a 404 not found. So let's go ahead and fix that. So we're in routing, source routes. Let's create a file called always errors. And in mod, we will mod that. Pub function. Okay, so our pub function, a pub async function, always errors. We're not going to take anything in. Now, in this case, I feel a little bit more comfortable doing a return value on this. We're not going to return just like a string or something like that. We're going to return a result. So this is a standard normal Rust result. We can return a string if it's okay, but in this case, this never returns anything because we're not going to. So I'm just going to return nothing like that. And our error is going to be a status code. So this is from Axum HTTP status code. So it's an enum that has basically the HTTP status codes. Let's first start by just returning okay. That will be a 200, which means we're not hitting that error that this always errors for. Okay, let's head back to mod and we'll pull this in. So use always errors, and let's create a route for this. Route path is always errors, and this is going to be a get always errors. If we head back to our new request and we hit send, great. We get that 200 okay, but well, that's not really an error, is it? So let's head back to always errors and let's actually let's change this. So instead of returning okay, we're going to return an error and we have to return a status code. Well, we already brought in status code, and here we have the text representation of all the possible responses that we can get. Now, if you go and you do a Google search for all the HTTP error codes or HTTP status codes you could possibly find, there's generally three different ones. Well, technically there's four, but there's generally three different ones you're most likely going to use. So the 200 series from 200 through 299 are all, this is good. Everything is okay. If we're on the 300s, which is that other one where redirects, so it's okay, but like something's elsewhere, we use those a lot less often. And then we have the errors. So the 400 series, so 400 through 499, those are the client messed up. So it's not the server's problem. The client didn't send the right data. The client used the wrong route. The client did it the wrong time. The client somehow has screwed something up, and therefore it's going to be a 4xx error. And then there's the 5xx errors, so 500 through 599. Those are the server screwed up. So if you have a database connected and the database password doesn't work, so the server can't actually connect into the database, that's the server's problem, so it should send a 500 response back. And then there's a bunch of sub numbers. So it's not always going to be like 400 or 500. It might be like 401 or 403. The 401 and 403s are authentication based, so like not authenticated or not authorized. Subtle differences there. There's one that's really fun because a long time ago on an April Fool's joke, somebody wrote a request for a request for comment, which then got accepted and added to the specs to add in an error if you're a teapot. So let's go ahead and use this. So I'm a teapot is actually a valid error that you can use here. So we're going to say that this route is a teapot, and therefore it can't do anything else. You should never use it. We're going to hit save, come back to our new request, and when we hit send, we get a status 418, I'm a teapot instead. Now, previously when we got an error, it crashed our server. So if we take a look at this again, we'll notice that nothing bad is happening. Everything is okay. We didn't get an error down here. We just got our 418 here. So it's really good to handle our errors properly and send them back, because that way it won't crash the server, causing you to need to restart it, which might not be nice for anybody else who has any kind of like requests in flight. Anyways, this was how we create or at least return custom error codes in a case that something is going wrong. And hopefully this is helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. I've always felt that it's helpful to explain the error code sort of system, because I guess like custom HTTP message, custom error codes. Because like so many people starting to use like a backend stuff, especially if you're not coming from the web side, might not sort of think that it's important, but it's surprisingly important for front end to be able to handle that and know what's happening. Or maybe not surprising. Okay, so no warnings, no errors. Good here. So we have you done. So we did custom status codes. Now, that was returning error status codes. Do I want to do something for returning like a custom success status code? Possibly. I actually don't know if I looked into that, but like if you're creating a resource, so I'd say like 99% of the time, you're going to be returning like a 200 with your for a success status code. But you might return a 201. A 201 is success resource created. So if you're doing like a post request to add something to the database, you would then want to return a 201. Let's see how we would do that. So Axums, I want responses. Do I have to create like a custom response? Turn different response types. Oh, is it a tuple? I vaguely remember that it's a tuple. Yes, it's a tuple. So here's we have this tuple here. Oh, it's status code first. Oh, okay. So we'll give a tuple. Okay, so how did I find this? We went into responses. And we found this here. Okay, excellent. So let's do the next one, which is turning success status codes. And let's do this next. We talked about sending a custom error status code, but what if we want to send one of the 200 status codes? Now, most of the time we are going to be just sending 200, so that's probably okay. We don't need to do anything clever. But whenever you create a resource, it is nice to send back a 201 to let the front end know that, hey, it's successful and an insert happened to whatever permanent data store that you have. 201 stands for a success created resource. So let's go create a route. And do we have? I don't think we have anything here. Let's create a new request for maybe like a fake insert. So we'll do a post for this one because that's usually what we do. So HTTP host port 3000. Maybe this is like creating a new user, or maybe it's just creating a new thing. Maybe we can like just increment counter something. It doesn't really matter. It's maybe we'll just say like some resource. So that's returns 201. That's what I'm going to name this route, just so it's more obvious what's going to happen if you're sort of looking through to find this example later. All right, so we got our normal 404. Let's go ahead and fix that. This is a returns 201.rs. Okay, so we're going to have a pub async function returns 201. Let's go ahead and get that set up here. All right, so we have returns 201, returns 201. And at the bottom here, we're going to put this under a post. So route returns 201. Is that exactly what I named it? I did, yeah. And service is going to be a post. And we're going to put in a returns 201 here. Okay, excellent. Now we get a 200 back, but we want a 201 back. Okay, so what we're going to do, instead of returning like a data type like a string or something like that, we're going to return a response. And then we can return actually just anything that can be turned into a response is going to be fine. And in order to return a custom, like a custom status code, we can use a tuple. So we're going to turn a tuple here. Now the first thing is going to be the status code itself. We want a status code created. That's going to be our 201. And then whatever data or anything else. So we can just do a message, which was this is a 201. And let's 2-own that. And then we have to do a into here to convert it into the type that we want it to be. The tree-bound response, Axum error, is not satisfied because the requirement into response. For here's the status code and string. Let's go take a look at the documentation. I may have gotten it backwards. So to find it, we're gonna go to Axum responses. So anything that implements into response can be returned from handles. So let's go to response more, returning different response types. All right, so here's what we're, it's this into response. That's what we're looking for. It's because we have just a tuple, it's not into response. So it's not into, it's into response. Let's change that. Into response. That makes it happy. We're going to come back to our request. And now we have a 200 created. Now we're also sending back this this response to the 200. If we don't want that, if we just want to send nothing here, we can just send nothing essentially. And there we go, an empty body with a 201 created. Now this does work for errors. We could have this send back anything else, so we can use that I'm a teapot again. And we get that 418 I'm a teapot. Let's put this back to created. And there we go. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. And now you can create custom responses using that sort of tuple method that's going to be the, whatever response you want. So a custom code and then a custom body if you so desire it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Okay, so this is custom success code. Okay, so you're happy. Return JSON data. Oh yeah. Okay. So responding with JSON data, we've already got something where we're extracting JSON data. So returning JSON data is right. We just return with like the JSON and the type, and it's pretty simple. So I think I might have time to even record that now too. So, and that will finish up the routing section. Nice. Okay, let's do it. Although I need to make sure that I'm not looking at that thing on the screen so it doesn't full screen it. this. Okay, now we can try it again. Here we go. So far, we've been returning very simple types with our responses. We've returned nothing, so just empty bodies, and we've returned strings. But what if we want to return JSON back to our client? Well, it's going to be similar, but not exactly the same as the extractor that we used. Let's go ahead and set up our Thunder client to have a request that's going to get some data. So we're going to go to HTTP //localhost 3000. Let's do maybe to like get JSON maybe. So when I get that, we have a 404 not found. Okay, great. Let's create the route for this. So under routing, we have our routes. We're going to do this as a get JSON. Okay, so we're going to have a pub async function get JSON. We're going to start with the very blank empty one, and we're going to use that here. Use JSON, get JSON, and let's create a route for this. So route, get JSON, and this is going to be a get with the get JSON on side. Okay, excellent. Back to here. So if we want to return JSON, we're going to use the same sort of JSON struct that's similar to the one that we got for the extractor. We're going to use that here, but we need a type. So we need actually some kind of struct to return. So we're going to have a pub struct. Now, because I'm generating the struct inside the same file that have my getJSON function in, I don't need to make all the fields private. But if I created this in a different file, I would need to. I usually like to start here in the same file and then potentially extract them out into different files in the case that everything is just getting a little bit too busy in here. Okay, so what do we want? We probably want like a message. That could be a string. Maybe I want like, a count. So a count could be in like i32. Maybe I just want some other random thing like username. That's also a string. Okay. So, I kind of need a name for this. Let's just call this random data because this is completely nonsense data. Who knows what this really is? It doesn't really matter in this case. So we're not taking in anything. I want to return, however, JSON. And it's going to be this type, so we're going to return data. Now, okay, so the first thing is it's yelling at us because we're not actually returning this. Okay, so let's mark that as returning. Now, you might notice, how is this going to work, right? Like, how is it actually going to convert this into JSON? We're going to get an error after we fix this error, another error yelling at us that we need to make this serializable. So we'll handle that when we get to that error. So first of all, mismatch types. Well, let's return let's create our data equals data. I'm going to fill the struct fields. Okay, and then now we have all these to-do macros. If you haven't seen this before, the to-do macro is pretty nice. It's basically telling a compiler, hey, I'm going to handle this later, so don't worry about it right now. Don't cause an error from me not having it. It will cause a major crash if you try to run it with this in there. And let's return a JSON data. Okay, so unreachable expression because this is going to crash. That's fine. Let's fix this. So message, this is I'm in data. To owns that. our count. This count is completely and totally random. Absolutely, completely random. And username. Maybe this is Berserker. Okay, but mod is now having a little bit of a problem here. It's basically saying that this trade is not being handled. It doesn't know how to do this. It's not happy. We need to derive clone for this. But we're still having problems. So we also need to derive serialize from Serde. And then that makes it happy. Let me double check. If I remove the clone, oh, it's actually just the serialize that it needs. So I was wrong about that. We just need serialize. Okay, we come back to our new request, and now we hit our get on this. We get this JSON back. And if we notice that in the headers of our return, our response, the content type was set for us to be application JSON. So you don't need to worry about making sure that the headers are set correctly from the backend side. If you're using this response type, this JSON sort of like this JSON struct, is going to figure it out for you. Okay, so that I think that's everything for this. We've now successfully returned JSON data in a route. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Sudo, hello. Okay, so this was returning JSON. Okay, and that is everything in routing. Now I'm really behind. So everything that I have here that's both bold and italic, those have been uploaded to YouTube already and made public, so people can watch them and give feedback on them. I'm a little bit behind. I need to just sit down and actually get these things out. They're because I'm an associate here on Twitch. I do have like a 24-hour limit, so I can't do like the videos from today. I think that sort of like causes me to sort of like, which ones do I want to put up, and then I just sort of and it's not that hard for me to look at the date stamps on it, but yeah. Okay, so recording wise, next we're going to be moving into data, which is going to be creating a database, setting up a local database with Docker. So we're going to be doing that. Now we have this Docker Compose here, but I think for this one I might be creating a different Docker Compose. Just in here. So we have routing. I'll probably create a like lessons, like a data folder, and then put everything inside of there, including the Docker file just for that one. So that's going to be fun. We'll probably do a 1-2 punch. I would imagine that creating the Docker file and figuring out exactly what we're going to do is going to be one video. And then the second, or sorry, that's going to be maybe 2 days because I only get an hour per day. So I'm guessing that the first day is going to be like just going through it myself, figuring out exactly what we need to do, copying off all like the stuff so I can copy paste or reference it while I'm doing the recording, and then maybe the next day record. That's my guess. The data stuff is when things slow down a little bit, and the videos start getting a little bit longer. All right, so that's all I have. Let's go ahead and save this. That was turning JSON data. I'll push up those changes, and we're a few minutes ahead of time. Togglebit is streaming still, so I'll go ahead and set a rate on him. I know there's only a few of us, but I think that'll be fine. So today is Friday. That means no stream tomorrow, no stream Sunday. I'll be back on Monday morning, and we'll be working on the data section of this. It's gonna be fun. So with that, have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.